Hey guys, Angela here and welcome back to another Hobby Night video. In this week's painting video, we're going to be doing the meanest, the greenest, the baddest Makari. Because while I have Thraka, he's a big boy and I'm not quite ready to tackle that. So we're going to stick with our little goblin friend in honor of John's new campaign as Grom the Paunch over on Alchemical Rabbit. So let's get to it. I'm going to prime him up and then we're going to paint this little guy. We begin with Plaguebearer flesh to do Makari's skin tone. We are essentially going to use the exact same technique that we used in our Nurgling video last week to do his skin tone, so we get that really great goblin green color at the end. You might also notice that I'm on camera here. I did this portion of the video while streaming for Games at Berkeley, so that's why we're here. Next up, I am going to use a small base brush by Citadel and Black Templar to do all of the metal bits on the banner as well as on Makari himself. The reason that I'm not jumping straight into the Biel-Tan shade, which is what we finish up his skin tone with, is because if I have any of this black paint anywhere on my green, it'll be much easier for me to just touch up the Plaguebearer's flesh instead of having to touch up both the Plaguebearer's flesh and the Biel-Tan shade to get it to blend correctly. So we're going to hold off on finishing up his skin tone until we've put a couple of other darker colors on. With all the black bits done, we are now going to move on to doing the Biel-Tan shade on his flesh. I was really just concerned about that color tone before doing this one, and I actually was very clean with all of my black, so I didn't have to touch anything up. And now we're moving on to the flesh, and you can already see we're getting a great bright goblin green color from doing this layering technique, and it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. I actually want to paint a lot more of the orcs that we own now that I have a great way to get that flesh color that they have that I really love. Next up, we're going to put Snakebite leather down on the banner portion on some of the detail leathery bits there. I really wanted to make sure that Makari's Biel-Tan shade that we had just put on his flesh tone had plenty of time to dry to make sure that it got a really nice, crisp, clean look before moving on to his leather bits that he needed using the same color tone. Next up, we're going to use some Gore-grunta fur on a couple of places that I decided I didn't want to put snakebite leather because I wanted to be able to differentiate them as different types of leather. Orcs are supposed to be very scrappy, and so I imagine he's getting all this various leather and metal bits from a bunch of different things, and so they're probably going to be a little bit mismatched. Gore-grunta ultimately also has a little bit of a nice red hue to it, and so I know that Makari and Thraka's clan, I believe they use a lot of red, so I wanted to make sure to pull that color into it more. So we'll put some leather on the banner as well, but I really wanted to pull this color in. Next up, we're going to take a little bit of Volupus pink, and we're just going to very lightly with a thin Da Vinci brush dab it into his mouth to try to pop it and hopefully avoid as much of the teeth as possible. If we do happen to get some on the teeth, we can just take a bit of Wraithbone and gently dry brush back over them, and it should help them pop back out while leaving the recesses of his mouth a really nice, rich, pinkish red color. After that's done, we do all of our cleanup. So like I said, we touch up the teeth. We also touch up any other places we may have gotten any of our other paint where we didn't want it before we do any of our further detail work. Next up, we're going to take a bit of Talassar blue, and we're just going to put a little dab of that on the gem on his wrist. Next up, we're going to take a bit of Basilicanum gray, and we're going to use that primarily on Makari's helmet and then a few places on the banner, because ultimately I decided to keep a few metal places not black because I wanted to continue the theme of their goblins and orcs. They do a lot of mix matching with their materials, and so I wanted to throw a couple variants in there. Next up, we're going to take a bit of Skeleton Horde, and we're just going to apply that to the horns on Makari's helmet his teeth, and then we're actually going to use it to blend a couple of our brown tones together on the banner as well. Now I'm going to take a bit of Blood Angel's Red and apply that to the miniature, primarily focusing on the fluffy bits around Makari's helmet, as well as the tassels on his sword, and then we're also going to take this color and use it as a glaze over top all of the leather bits on the banner to really bring that clan color into the miniature. Makari himself is almost finished, as is the banner, so we're going to just spend a little bit of time using primarily the colors we've already gone through to do some final detail work and clean up any places that we might need to darken or possibly even lighten, depending on what the need is. The final color that we're going to apply to Makari, at least, is Iyanden Yellow, and this is primarily to just bring a little bit of detail out on the helmet that he's standing on. So we're going to dab the eyes and the light on the helmet with this color. Now we're going to move on to the banner and just use Apothecary White to do the final detail on the skull and bone in the banner. I wanted to add a little bit of metallic to this miniature, as they are orcs and I always see them with the metallic coloring. So we're going to take a bit of Necron compound and just dry brush this onto all the rivets and screws that are in the banner, as well as on Makari's helmet and his sword hilt, and then a little bit on the helmet he's standing on, just to bring a little bit of details, because despite putting that yellow on the eyes, it still wasn't quite popping enough for me. I went ahead and pre-primed Makari's base in Tallarn sand, and we're going to take Armageddon dust, which is honestly my favorite of all of the texture paints, and we're going to just smear that across this, getting a nice thin surface. And here he is, your standard bearer for Gosgal Thraka, Makari! He is fantastic. I went ahead and put those blue tufts on just because I wanted to accent that gem on his wrist and not really detract from any of the red or the green of his skin, but he came out great. I can't wait to paint some more orcs. He really has gotten me in the mood to paint some more orcs, so we'll maybe see that on the channel in the future, but let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you guys next time.